This week on the Aviators, ever wonder how a pattern of small dots is able to form the world's largest billboard? Watch as the Geico Skytypers spell out the impressive process of course, Skytyping. Then, for all those kit captains out there, we visit Sonex to showcase a tiny plane that makes a big impact. Within the world of formation flying, the Geico Skytypers hold a special distinction that sets them apart from their contemporaries. For one, this six-man formation squad is world-renowned for their uniquely thrilling light formation demonstration. In fact, along with their 6 Navy SNJ-2 aircraft, they're the only civilian World War II squadron flying in the world today. But as their name suggests, what truly sets them apart is a rather unique skill set that enables them to produce giant, smoke-written messages across the sky. Over the course of our 6 seasons at the Aviators, the Skytypers have had somewhat of a recurring role as we've looked at everything from their team history to what goes into one of their airshow performances. Yet one aspect of the squad that we've yet to explore is the very component that makes them so unique to begin with. That is the technology of Skytyping. Well before the development of what came to be known as Skytyping, pilots would produce messages in the sky by way of skywriting. With skywriting, an activity still in practice today, a single airplane would write its message by expelling smoke to physically trace out one letter at a time in the sky. With each letter taking upwards of 3 minutes to produce, the result would often be a message that would have partially faded by the time it was finished. In the 1940s, a former skywriter named Andy Stinnes set out to develop an improved means of sky messaging through which multiple aircraft would work in tandem to create faster, larger, and longer-lasting messages in the sky. The result was a technology that saw aircraft flying in formation, each one expelling puffs of smoke in such a way that resembled the printing head of an old dot matrix printer. And so the activity was termed Skytyping. And when compared to the laborious and time-intensive process of skywriting, the advantages could not be denied.
The nice thing about Skytyping is we can put out 20 to 25 letters in less than 2 minutes. So less time than it takes to write one skywritten letter, we can actually do a message of 20 to 25 characters.
Over the course of its life, Skytyping technology has evolved significantly from its far more manual and somewhat cumbersome beginnings to a system that takes full advantage of modernized technology to offer its users a largely automated process.
Many, many years ago, there were radios actually put in the airplanes with toggle switches, and the toggle switches commanded the airplanes to smoke in sequence, and you had to take a radio, big radio in each airplane, and set up the switches, and the pilot would just start the process, and the switching would actually turn on and off the smoke system to form these giant letters in the sky.
Today, Skytyping is done with a little laptop, almost kneeboard-sized computer that we use to control via data link radios the smoke systems in all of the aircraft in the formation. So they link up using this radio, which is a lot like Wi-Fi. They connect up with the computer, and then Larry, from the front seat of one, can command the smoke systems in each of the aircraft. Now what we do, the art in it is to fly a line abreast formation across the sky. We're about 3 wingspans apart. The computer tells each aircraft when to puff smoke, and those dots spell out large messages. These messages can be 1,500 feet tall, They can be as long as 6 to 8 miles. They're larger than the Empire State Building when you see them up at altitude.
While the technology of skytyping allows for the smoke to be expelled through largely automated means, this is just one of several factors that must be coordinated with the utmost precision in order to achieve the perfectly formed messages that the skytypers strive for with each successive run. As team lead, the overall responsibility for each flight and all of its variable components inevitably fell onto Larry's shoulders. This meant that he would not only have to lead his team in precise formation throughout the flight, but he would also have to execute all of the technological commands necessary to complete the skytyping mission itself. Yet given that the team's SNJ-2 aircraft cannot be equipped with an autopilot function, it only made sense for Larry to delegate some of his mid-flight duties over to someone he can trust with such responsibility.
You're on final approach, your aircraft's configured, and you're looking straight down the runway. It's time to land. I know you're excited, but remember, stay focused. There are a lot of things going on, and it's very important to keep your head on the swivel. You're very low to the ground, and if something goes wrong, you may not have time to recover. Landing can be a lot of fun, but at the same time, a lot of things can go wrong. Always remember, if you're in a situation where you think that the landing may not go as planned, always go around. Make the safe decision, because you're only as good as your last landing.
Without an autopilot, it left me in a position where if I'm going to watch for traffic, look at points on the ground that we have to put messages in, watch the computer, make sure the other aircraft are firing and putting out the correct length of smoke at the proper time. It took quite a lot for me to do that and keep the airplane extremely level so that the other pilots could fly on the aircraft without it moving around in the skies. So that brought me to the next role of having a backseater that could basically sit back there, fly the airplane where I tell him to fly it, and hold specific positions so that I could do all the other tasks that are involved in running the smoke system and making sure we're hitting the targets for the clients.
Filling the role as Larry's back seat, where he shares in flying duties during a skytyping mission, is Skytyper number 8, Steve Kapoor.
I would position Larry as a mission commander. He is overall responsible for the flight. He directs where we go, he plans what messages are going where. And I am basically a tool or an assistant to him. I do some of the flying, Larry does some of the flying. But at a certain point, Larry hands off to me, I'm flying the aircraft, he's got us, aimed where he wants us, and he is actually selecting the messages from the computer and commanding the messages to be run by the aircraft in the formation.
When setting out on a skytyping mission, Larry will begin at the helm of the lead aircraft, guiding his team through their takeoff and bringing them up to a certain altitude. This is when Larry will hand control of the aircraft and the role of team lead over to Steve, so he can begin to focus his attention on the skytyping system itself.
Okay, Steve, we're at a 5,000 feet to 110. Keep the climb going to 9,500 feet and pick up the Connecticut shoreline, your aircraft.
He'll give me what he wants me to do in terms of altitude, heading, and I'll confirm that to him. On the way out, we make sure that our flight instruments are in sync. The other thing we do when we take is we'll shake the stick to assure that the others got it. Since we've got an intercom, I'll also say I've got the airplane, and then at that point, it's my airplane.
Up to 9,500 feet, straight ahead, hold 110. North at Connecticut shore.
While in control of the aircraft, Steve's role as lead is quite demanding and complex, requiring that he maintain steady control over the formation itself while following Larry's direction as to the precise positioning of the aircraft to ensure that the sky-typed message is properly placed in the sky for the readers below.
When Larry gives me the airplane, he's got in mind an area that he wants to sky type. So he'll tell me what he wants to do, and my job is to position the formation in such a manner that the folks on the ground can read the messages. So I need to be in a certain position relative to the target that we're trying to deliver.
And his movements have to be very, very slow and easy because we have guys way out in the formation. And if he wraps it up too fast, the guy that's sitting way on the outside will actually be power limited because we're up so high. We're up at between 9,000 and 10,000 feet. And he'll actually get pulled back. And when he gets pulled back, the message gets messed up because the letters are not in straight lines and the message doesn't look right. So it's really his job to take what I want, put it into really precise, small inputs that the outside or the inside guys can make the adjustments to be able to hold this line abreast formation as perfect as possible.
With the aircraft and the formation under Steve's control, Larry can focus on the Skytyping system itself, first coordinating tests to ensure that each aircraft's smoke system is firing properly, and then using the tablet-sized computer in his lap to ready the messages to be typed across the sky. Larry actually preloads most of the Skytyping messages onto the tiny computer the night before a flight, but in some situations, he may have to compose a new message mid-flight. Now with the aircraft in position and the message composed and ready to go, Larry prompts the computer to initiate each individual smoke system, and the Skytyping is officially underway.
I really enjoy flying with Larry. I've said it before. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do. He and I are close, and we communicate well with each other, sometimes almost telepathically. I know what he's going to want in a situation because I've experienced it with him a number of times.
Steve is one of my best friends, I mean, which is great. He's also the marketing officer of the team, and he's a licensed pilot. I'm very fortunate to have great relationships with every one of the pilots and the mechanics on the team. You know, most of us have been together for more than 15 years, so it's a family affair. But it is a team, and we all have each other's back. And if I'm having a bad day or I'm forgetting something, Steve's right there to remind me, and vice versa, and that's what teammates do.
From the initial point of handoff until control over the aircraft is finally passed back to Larry for the descent, the in-cockpit relationship between Steve and Larry is emblematic of the Geico Skytypers as a team, with absolute precision on every level fueling their continued success in the sky. For as long as powered flight has existed, so too has the world of home-built aircraft. One of the leaders of what's officially known in the United States as experimental amateur-built aircraft is the Oshkosh, Wisconsin-based Sonex aircraft. Since 1998, the kit manufacturer has specialized in the production of sport airplanes for the amateur builder. When we caught up with Sonex founder John Monett at their research and development division known as the Hornet's Nest, Sonex was ready to unleash their newest and most groundbreaking aircraft yet.
Well, it's a little out of the norm, I guess, but you know, who hasn't ever dreamed of being a jet pilot? So I've thought that at one time I would be able to be a jet pilot, and the only way I could do it is to build one. And that's what we have behind us, is the Subsonics. It really evolved from my design partner, Pete Buck. We always were thinking of things just like our electric airplane, like the Sonex line of airplanes. And, you know, we said, well, what are we going to do next? And we saw model airplane jet engines coming about now that were a little bigger, and we started investigating that market. We've kept our eye on it for a long time. And we finally said, this is, you know, this is a time to maybe look at building a personal jet. So we put some lines down on paper and some ideas, and that's what we did.
The Subsonics JSX personal jet is among the first kit-based aircraft derived from a new generation of small, modern jet engines. And before you start wondering about such features as service ceilings, range, or baggage, as Sonex aircraft themselves put it, the Subsonics is about one thing and one thing only: a thrilling rocket ride around the neighborhood.
What was it like the first time I flew the jet? It was very exhilarating. It was much like the experience that I've had in gliders and all test flights that I've had with other airplanes, except, of course, I don't have a big engine rattling around in front of me with all of that noise. Once we're off the ground, it's a very smooth ride. And I liken it very much to an airliner. The acceleration is very similar to what everybody experiences when they're flying Southwest. It's just amazing when it takes off and it starts climbing, and it builds speed very quickly, so it's really a rush.
One of the major differences between the previous Sonex aircraft models and the subsonics, apart from its jet engine, is the way the kit itself is produced. Compared to its predecessors, the Subsonics quick-build kit is a more complete kit that provides customers with nearly everything they need to fly, in addition to offering 2 options of the delivered aircraft.
There's 2 basic ways the jet is delivered, and that's one is an experimental amateur-built kit, which means that the fuselage is finished, the vertical surfaces, stabilizers are finished and installed on the airplane, the wings are finished and fitted to the fuselage. The difference between it and our exhibition category airplane is the exhibition category not only has that, but it has all of the control surfaces built, which means the rudder vaders, the flaps and ailerons, etc., and a number of other things. So there's a little bit of difference, but not a whole lot, and that's the way it's delivered. The neat thing about it is that there's an option to buy a trailer. The trailer is all set up so that you just roll the airplane in, and we actually have delivered the kits in the trailer to the customers, so it's a really unique system that way.
With the quick-build kit, Sonex has greatly reduced both the build time and the level of skill required of the customer to complete the aircraft, offering the fastest build possible within the bounds of experimental home building regulations.
We have a set of plans, of course, that complete all of the systems are in isometric SolidWorks, and there's a checklist based on what we call a drawing tree. So we have a drawing that specifies a particular thing, like installing the landing gear. And then it goes to the next thing, you know, adjusting the gear doors or whatever. And once you work your way through this tree, at the last part of that tree, the last label is the finished airplane.
The Subsonic's latest model, the JSX-2, follows the original JSX-1 model of the aircraft with its all-metal airframe, fiberglass nose, round canopy, and a straight Hershey bar wing free of any aerodynamic twists, making for a very gentle aircraft to fly in terms of characteristics such as stalls. The aircraft also features a Y tail, which is much like the V tail with the addition of a rudder on the back of the fuselage. Improving upon the original JSX-1, the JSX-2 sports a wider fuselage enabling a larger cockpit and larger instrument panel, a more streamlined nose, a ballistic parachute, and fully retractable landing gear with shock absorption characteristics. Additionally, getting back to the trailer option that John previously mentioned, the wings of the Subsonics are designed to be very easily removed from the aircraft, allowing the aircraft to be stored in its own little hangar for long-distance trips.
It weighs about 650 pounds empty. It carries 40 gallons of fuel, which is enough for over 2 hours of duration, depending on what the program is. In a normal cruise, climb, descent, we can go over 400 miles with the airplane. So it does have some capability, but of course it's built for aerobatics. It's built to terrorize the neighborhood, really.
Perhaps the most interesting aspect of the aircraft is its PBS TJ100 turbojet engine, which is, frankly, the component which truly sets the Subsonics apart. And despite what its size might suggest, as John points out, this is by no means a model jet engine.
The engine has got about 250 pounds of thrust, which is ample, and it's a full-featured engine. It's not a model airplane engine. It's a full developed power plant that has a complete solid-state control system, so it's very easy to start. We just move this throttle to the start position. It starts up automatically, comes back to idle. It's ready to rock and roll as soon as the temps come up. And when we go to shut it down, we just pull the throttle past the detent, and it automatically shuts down, cools down by itself. So it has a recirculating oil system, so we don't have to add oil to the fuel. It's a real jet engine.
Making the Subsonic's engine even cooler is just how easy it is to attach to and remove from the aircraft. In fact, this particular feature is something that Subsonic's test pilot, Bob Carlton, puts to use when on the road with the aircraft.
This engine is just self-contained. It's like looking at an Electrolux vacuum cleaner of the day. It bolts on with just 2 bolts and a couple of quick disconnects. You could disconnect the fuel line so the engine can come off. In fact, when it's on the road sometimes, just for security purposes, because it's worth so much, the engine just comes off and goes back into the motel room with Bob. For maintenance, the engine fits in a cooler, a big igloo cooler, so when it does need a check or anything, we just put it in the cooler and put it on the airline, and it's back in the Czech Republic being fixed or monitored, and it comes back, and in a matter of 15 minutes, the engine's back on the airplane.
While the concept of a miniature jet aircraft isn't in itself original, what makes this aircraft so special compared to its microjet predecessors is that the Subsonics makes jet engine technology a far more achievable possibility than ever before.
And looking at the project, 20 years ago would have been a lot different. Back when the BD-5 jet came out, of course, that's been an inspiration for all of us for a long time, but it was so unachievable because even back in the late 70s, the engine for that airplane was $150,000 in 1970 money. So that was an unachievable airplane. But now that we have a fully developed engine, and we have technology of all the EFIS systems, all of the electronic radios, everything is miniaturized. So we have an instrument panel that's like only an inch thick, and it has everything on it. We have GPS, we have an actual pictorial of the terrain. It can switch our panels so it'll look like steam gauges. It's very versatile. We even have cameras mounted on the airplane that come up on the instrument panel, so we can check our landing gear to make sure it's down. Even if the indicators go out, we can still check it visually right on our screen.
For John and his team, every aircraft created under the Sonex brand could be considered a pet project, something that they created because they themselves wanted to see it to existence. Now with the Subsonics, they've gone even further, not only creating something brand new for themselves, but in the process, offering home-built pilots everywhere the opportunity to experience something that they may never have had the chance to experience before, an experience that only a jet engine can offer.
When you look at the reality, there's a lot of light sport airplanes out there that we can go out and rent. I can go across the airport here and rent an LSA. Well, for the same price, I can fill up the jet with fuel and go fly it. So, what would I rather do? Putt around at 70 or 85 or 100 miles an hour, or blast through the clouds at 250?
All 6 seasons of The Aviators, as well as Air Boss, are now available for viewing online and on disc. For more information on today's segments, visit www.theaviators.tv. From Oshkosh, Wisconsin's Whitman Regional Airport, we'll see you next time on The Aviators.